The evening was calm with a gentle breeze blowing through the streets of the city. The sun had just dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. Streetlights flickered to life, casting soft glows on the sidewalks, as people bustled about their evening routines. Among these busy streets stood an elegant restaurant, its windows glowing warmly like a beacon for those seeking fine dining and good company. The sign above the door read Thompson's Table, a name that carried weight among food enthusiasts and locals alike. Inside, the atmosphere buzzed with energy. The air smelled delicious. Hints of garlic, herbs, and freshly baked bread mingled together, making mouths water even before the first bite. Crystal chandeliers hung from the ceiling, casting shimmering light across polished wooden tables adorned with pristine white tablecloths. Soft jazz music played in the background, adding a touch of sophistication to the scene. Servers moved gracefully between tables, balancing trays loaded with exquisite dishes while chatting politely with guests. Among the patrons sat Evelyn Thompson, an elderly woman whose presence commanded respect despite her quiet demeanor. She wore a simple yet tasteful outfit, a navy blue dress paired with a pearl necklace, and carried herself with grace. Her silver hair was neatly styled into a bun, and her eyes sparkled with wisdom earned over decades of living. Evelyn wasn't one for extravagance. She preferred simplicity and authenticity. But tonight she had decided to treat herself to dinner at this particular restaurant, not because it was trendy or expensive, but because it held special meaning for her. Evelyn knew something about this place that few others did. Her son, Marcus Thompson, owned it. Marcus had built this establishment from the ground up, pouring his heart and soul into every detail. From the menu crafted with care to the warm ambiance designed to make diners feel welcome, everything reflected his passion for excellence. Yet Marcus had chosen not to flaunt his ownership publicly. He wanted his restaurants to succeed based on merit, not because people knew who he was. To most customers and even some employees, Marcus was simply the man behind the scenes, ensuring smooth operations without seeking recognition. As Evelyn settled into her seat near the corner of the room, she took a moment to soak in the surroundings. This wasn't her first time visiting Thompson's Table, but each visit felt unique. She loved watching families celebrate milestones, couples share intimate conversations, and friends laugh over shared plates. It reminded her of the importance of connection, the way food brought people together, transcending differences and creating memories. A young couple nearby toasted to their anniversary, their faces glowing with happiness. At another table, a group of co-workers laughed heartily, clearly enjoying each other's company after a long day at the office. Evelyn smiled faintly, appreciating the joy around her. Still, she couldn't help but notice how certain dynamics played out within the restaurant. Some servers greeted specific tables with enthusiasm, while others seemed less attentive. It was subtle, almost imperceptible unless you were paying close attention, but Evelyn had spent enough years observing human behavior to recognize patterns when she saw them. Her thoughts drifted back to Marcus. She remembered the countless hours he'd spent working tirelessly to build his dream. When he first opened Thompson's Table, there were skeptics who doubted whether a Black-owned business could thrive in such a competitive industry. But Marcus proved them wrong, earning accolades and loyal customers along the way. Despite his success, he remained humble, always crediting his team for their hard work and dedication. Evelyn felt immense pride in her son, knowing how much effort he put into creating a space where everyone felt valued and respected. But tonight, fate seemed determined to test that very principle. As Evelyn waited patiently for someone to take her order, she noticed a young waiter approaching her table. He looked nervous, fidgeting slightly as he glanced around the room. For a brief moment their eyes met, and Evelyn offered him a kind smile, hoping to ease his discomfort. However, instead of returning the gesture, the waiter hesitated, his expression shifting ever so slightly. He cleared his throat awkwardly and said, "I'm sorry, ma'am, but we're fully booked tonight." His tone was polite enough, but there was an undertone of dismissal that didn't escape Evelyn's sharp senses. She raised an eyebrow, surprised by the statement. "I believe I have a reservation," she replied calmly, her voice steady and confident. It's under the name Evelyn Thompson. The waiter blinked, caught off guard. Oh, he faltered, clearly unsure of what to say next. After a pause, he added, Are you sure? I don't see your name on our list. Evelyn's heart sank a little at his response, though she refused to let her emotions show. She reached into her purse and pulled out a small card confirming her reservation. Handing it to him, she said gently, Perhaps there's been a misunderstanding. My reservation is right here. For a split second, the waiter appeared flustered, as if debating whether to double-check or stand his ground. In the end, he muttered something vague about needing to confirm with the hostess and hurried away, leaving Evelyn sitting alone once again. Though outwardly composed, Evelyn couldn't ignore the sting of rejection. It wasn't the first time she'd encountered such treatment, nor would it likely be the last. Over the years, she had learned to navigate moments like these with dignity and resilience. But tonight, seated in her own son's restaurant, the irony of the situation struck her deeply. Little did the young waiter know, his actions were about to set off a chain of events that would leave a lasting impact on everyone involved, including himself. The young waiter, whose name tag read Liam, hurried away from Evelyn's table, his mind racing with confusion and unease. He hadn't meant to cause a scene, or at least, that's what he told himself as he approached the hostess station. His palms were sweaty and his heart pounded in his chest. He glanced back at Evelyn briefly, but she was sitting quietly, her posture straight and composed, as if nothing unusual had happened. Her calm demeanor only made him feel worse. Hey, did we have a reservation for Evelyn Thompson? Liam asked the hostess, trying to sound casual but failing miserably. The hostess, a sharp-eyed woman named Clara, immediately pulled up the reservation list on her tablet. After a quick scan, she nodded firmly. Yes, she's here for 7:30 p.m. Table 12. Why? Liam hesitated, unsure of how to explain himself. I thought maybe there was a mix-up or something. She didn't seem like... He stopped abruptly, realizing how his words might sound. Clara raised an eyebrow, her expression unreadable. She didn't seem like what? She pressed, her tone sharper now. Caught off guard, Liam stammered. I mean, she's not dressed like the other guests, you know, and I wasn't sure. Clara sighed heavily, shaking her head. That's not your call to make, Liam. We don't turn people away based on how they look. You know that. Liam felt his cheeks flush with embarrassment. Of course he knew better. Or at least, he should have. The restaurant prided itself on professionalism and inclusivity. Every employee underwent rigorous training to ensure they treated all customers with respect and courtesy. Yet in that moment, Liam had let his own biases cloud his judgment. He couldn't pinpoint exactly why he'd reacted the way he did. Maybe it was because Evelyn looked different from the usual clientele. Or maybe it was because she seemed so unassuming, almost out of place in the upscale setting. Whatever the reason, he realized too late that his actions were wrong. As Liam stood there, frozen with guilt, another server overheard their conversation. This was Sarah, one of the more experienced waitstaff members who had been working at Thompson's table since its opening. She stepped forward, her arms crossed and her expression stern. "What's going on?" she demanded, glancing between Liam and Clara. Clara quickly filled her in. Liam turned away Mrs. Thompson downstairs, claiming we're fully booked. Turns out she has a valid reservation. Sarah's eyes widened in disbelief. "Mrs. Thompson, are you serious right now?" Her voice carried a hint of exasperation, and Liam braced himself for what was coming next. Sarah was known for being tough but fair, and she had little patience for mistakes that compromised the restaurant's reputation. "I didn't mean to," Liam began, but Sarah cut him off. "Didn't mean to what? Offend her? Make her feel unwelcome? Because that's exactly what you've done." Liam opened his mouth to defend himself, but no words came out. Deep down, he knew Sarah was right. What he'd done was unacceptable, and there was no excuse for it. Still, part of him hoped this could be resolved quietly before anyone else found out. Unfortunately, fate had other plans. Meanwhile, Evelyn remained seated at her table, patiently, waiting. Though outwardly calm, her thoughts churned with a mix of disappointment and frustration. She had encountered prejudice countless times throughout her life, and while she had learned to handle such situations with grace, it never stopped hurting. Tonight, however, she couldn't shake the irony of the situation. Here she was, in her own son's restaurant, being dismissed by someone who had no idea who she was, or rather who her family was. Evelyn glanced around the room, observing the other diners. Most were engrossed in their meals or conversations, oblivious to the tension brewing near the corner table. A few servers moved briskly between tables, balancing trays of food with practiced ease. Everything appeared normal, yet Evelyn couldn't help but feel a growing sense of unease. Something told her this incident wouldn't end quietly. Back at the hostess station, Sarah wasted no time addressing the issue. "Listen, Liam," she said firmly, lowering her voice so only he and Clara could hear. "You need to fix this, now. Apologize to Mrs. Thompson and make sure she gets the best service possible. If you don't, I'm taking this straight to Marcus." At the mention of Marcus's name, Liam's stomach dropped. He had met Marcus only a handful of times, but the man's presence commanded respect. Marcus was known for being approachable, yet firm, especially when it came to matters of professionalism and customer satisfaction. The thought of facing him after making such a grave error filled Liam with dread. "I'll fix it," Liam assured Sarah, though his voice trembled slightly. "I'll go apologize right now." With that, he turned and headed back toward Evelyn's table, rehearsing his apology in his head. But as he drew closer, he noticed something that made his blood run cold. Standing beside Evelyn's chair was none other than Marcus Thompson himself. Tall and impeccably dressed in a tailored suit, Marcus radiated authority. His expression was unreadable, but the intensity in his eyes sent a clear message. Something was very wrong. For a moment, Liam froze, unsure of what to do. Should he interrupt? Wait until Marcus finished speaking with his mother? Before he could decide, Marcus glanced up and locked eyes with him. There was no anger in his gaze, just a piercing clarity that made Liam feel even smaller than he already did. "Liam," Marcus said evenly, gesturing for him to come closer. "Join us." Reluctantly, Liam approached the table, his heart pounding in his chest. He avoided looking directly at Evelyn, focusing instead on Marcus, who stood with his hands clasped behind his back. "Sir," Liam began, his voice barely above a whisper. I'm so sorry. I didn't realize—" "You didn't realize what?" Marcus interrupted, his tone calm but firm. "That this woman deserves the same respect and service as anyone else in my restaurant? That she happens to be my mother, that you—" Words hit Liam like a punch to the gut. He stared at Evelyn, finally putting two and two together. Her elegant demeanor, her quiet confidence, it all made sense now. How could he have been so blind, so careless? I didn't know." Liam stammered, his face flushing with shame. "I swear I didn't mean any disrespect. I messed up." Marcus studied him for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Then, without saying another word, he turned his attention back to Evelyn. "Mom," he said softly, kneeling beside her chair. "Are you okay?" Evelyn gave him a small, reassuring smile. "I'm fine, Marcus. But this isn't just about me. It's about how people like me are treated everywhere." Her voice was steady, but there was a weight to her words that resonated deeply. Marcus nodded, understanding exactly what she meant. Growing up, he had witnessed firsthand the challenges his mother faced simply because of the color of her skin. Those experiences had shaped him, driving him to create spaces where everyone felt valued and respected. And now, standing in his own restaurant, he realized just how far they still had to go. Turning back to Liam, Marcus spoke again. "This is a learning opportunity, for you, for me, and for everyone here. We can't undo what's been done, but we can make sure it never happens again. Do you understand?" Liam nodded vigorously, tears welling up in his eyes. "Yes, sir. I promise I'll do better." Marcus placed a hand on his shoulder, offering a rare moment of reassurance. Good. Start by apologizing properly to my mother. Then, let's get her order taken care of. With that, Marcus stepped aside, leaving Liam to face Evelyn. Taking a deep breath, Liam knelt beside her chair, his voice trembling as he spoke. Mrs. Thompson, I am so sorry for how I treated you. It was wrong, and I promise it won't happen again. Please forgive me. Evelyn regarded him silently for a moment before nodding slowly. Thank you for apologizing, she said gently. But remember, it's not just about me. Treat everyone with kindness and respect, no matter who they are or where they come from. Her words lingered in the air, a poignant reminder of the lesson that needed to be learned, not just by Liam, but by everyone present. As Marcus led Evelyn to a private booth to enjoy her meal, the atmosphere in the restaurant shifted subtly. Servers exchanged knowing glances, whispers rippling through the staff. Word spread quickly. Tonight had been a wake-up call, one that would leave a lasting impact on Thompson's table and perhaps beyond. The evening at Thompson's table had taken an unexpected turn, and the ripple effects of the incident were already beginning to spread through the restaurant. As Marcus escorted his mother, Evelyn, to a private booth tucked away in a quiet corner of the dining room, he could feel the weight of responsibility pressing down on him. This wasn't just about one waiter's mistake. It was about the culture of the entire establishment, the values it stood for, and whether those values were truly being upheld. Evelyn settled into the plush seat, her posture as dignified as ever. She accepted the menu Marcus handed her with a soft smile, but there was no mistaking the flicker of disappointment in her eyes. It wasn't directed at Liam, or even Marcus. It was a reflection of the broader frustrations she'd faced throughout her life. For Evelyn, this moment wasn't personal, it was symbolic, and Marcus understood that better than anyone. Once Evelyn was comfortably seated, Marcus excused himself briefly, promising to return shortly. He walked briskly toward the kitchen, where he knew the head chef and a few senior staff members would be preparing dishes for the night. The kitchen buzzed with activity. Pots clanged, pans sizzled, and the aroma of spices filled the air. Despite the chaos, Marcus commanded attention the moment he stepped inside. Everyone, he said firmly, raising his voice just enough to cut through the noise. The staff paused their tasks, turning to face him. We need to talk. Marcus quickly explained what had happened with Liam and Evelyn, omitting no details. His tone wasn't angry, but it carried an undeniable edge of seriousness. This is unacceptable, he continued. Not only did we fail my mother, but we failed every single person who walks through our doors expecting to be treated with dignity and respect. The room fell silent. Some of the staff looked shocked, while others exchanged guilty glances. They all knew how much Marcus valued inclusivity and professionalism. To see him visibly upset was rare and unsettling. One of the sous chefs, a middle-aged woman named Maria, spoke up first. Marcus, I can assure you none of us would intentionally treat anyone poorly, but clearly something went wrong tonight. What do you want us to do? Marcus took a deep breath, collecting his thoughts before responding. I want us to reflect on why this happened. Was it just Liam's error, or is there something deeper going on? Are we doing enough to ensure that everyone feels welcome here, not just in words but in actions? His question hung heavy in the air. No one dared to answer immediately. Finally, another server named James chimed in. It's not always easy, he admitted hesitantly. Sometimes people come in looking different from what we expect, or they don't act like regular customers. It's instinctual, I guess, to judge them without realizing it. Marcus nodded slowly, acknowledging the truth in James's statement. That's exactly why we need to be vigilant, he said. Our instincts aren't always right. We have to challenge ourselves to look past appearances and assumptions. If someone walks through that door, it doesn't matter what they're wearing, how they speak, or where they come from. They deserve the same level of service as anyone else. Maria crossed her arms, her expression thoughtful. So what's the plan? How do we fix this? Marcus smiled faintly, appreciating her proactive attitude. First, we address Liam directly. He made a mistake, and he needs to take accountability for it. But punishment alone won't solve the problem. We also need to implement changes that prevent this from happening again. He outlined several steps he intended to take. First, he announced that all staff members, servers, hosts, chefs, and even dishwashers would undergo mandatory sensitivity training sessions within the next 2 weeks. These workshops would focus on recognizing unconscious biases, fostering empathy, and ensuring equitable treatment for every guest. Second, Marcus proposed creating a new policy he called the Evelyn Standard, named after his mother. Under this initiative, employees would be encouraged to go above and beyond in making sure every customer felt valued and respected, regardless of their background. Finally, Marcus emphasized the importance of leading by example. "I'm not immune to mistakes either," he admitted. "If I slip up, I expect you all to call me out on it." Accountability starts at the top. By the time Marcus finished speaking, the mood in the kitchen had shifted. The initial shock had given way to determination. Everyone present recognized the gravity of the situation and understood that real change required effort from each of them. Meanwhile, back in the dining area, Evelyn sat quietly in her booth, observing the comings and goings of the restaurant. Though she appeared serene, her mind was anything but calm. Memories of similar incidents flooded her thoughts. Times when she'd been overlooked, underestimated, or outright dismissed because of the color of her skin. Yet she also remembered moments of triumph, when resilience and grace had turned adversity into opportunity. As she perused the menu, a young server approached her table cautiously. It wasn't Liam this time, but a girl named Emily, who had been working at Thompson's table for less than 6 months. Emily's hands trembled slightly as she held her notepad, and her voice wavered when she greeted Evelyn. "Good evening, ma'am," Emily began. "My name is Emily, and I'll be taking care of you tonight. Can I start you off with something to drink?" Evelyn looked up and offered a warm smile. "Thank you, dear. I'd love a glass of water with lemon, please." Emily nodded eagerly, jotting down the request. Before leaving, she added, "And if there's anything else you need, don't hesitate to let me know." After Emily hurried away, Evelyn allowed herself a small chuckle. The poor girl was clearly nervous, likely aware of the earlier incident and eager to make amends. Evelyn appreciated the gesture. It showed that word had traveled fast among the staff and they were already trying to rectify the situation. A short while later, Marcus returned to the booth, pulling up a chair beside his mother. He placed a hand gently on hers, his expression a mix of concern and admiration. "Mom, I'm sorry you had to experience that," he said softly. "You didn't deserve it." Evelyn patted his hand reassuringly. "No, I didn't. But neither does anyone else who faces such treatment. That's why it's important to use this as a teaching moment, not just for Liam, but for everyone." Marcus nodded, grateful for his mother's wisdom. "You're right. I've already spoken to the team and we're putting measures in place to ensure this never happens again. Sensitivity training, new policies, the whole works." Evelyn raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "Tell me more about these policies." Marcus explained the concept of the Evelyn Standard in detail, emphasizing its goal of promoting inclusivity and respect. Evelyn listened intently, her expression softening with pride. "That's a beautiful idea, Marcus," she said. "But remember, policies are only as good as the people enforcing them. You'll need to lead by example and hold everyone accountable, including yourself." "I will," Marcus promised. "And I hope you'll help me keep things in check. After all, this restaurant wouldn't exist without your influence." Evelyn chuckled softly. "Oh, stop flattering me. Just promise me one thing, that you'll continue standing up for what's right, even when it's hard." "I promise," Marcus replied earnestly. "Always." As their conversation continued, the atmosphere in the restaurant began to shift subtly. Servers moved with renewed purpose, their interactions with guests marked by extra care and attentiveness. Even Liam, still shaken by the earlier confrontation, threw himself into his work with newfound determination. He resolved to prove himself, not just to Marcus, but to Evelyn and every other customer who walked through the door. By the end of the evening, Thompson's Table had transformed. The incident with Evelyn had exposed cracks in the foundation of the restaurant's culture, but it had also provided an opportunity for growth. Under Marcus's leadership, the staff rallied together, united by a shared commitment to do better. And though the road ahead wouldn't be easy, they were ready to face it, with humility, courage, and a steadfast belief in the power of change. The days following the incident at Thompson's Table were filled with reflection, action, and a renewed sense of purpose. Marcus wasted no time in implementing the changes he had promised during his meeting with the staff. The restaurant buzzed, not just with the usual energy of dinner service, but also with an undercurrent of transformation, a palpable determination to turn this moment into something meaningful. The first step was organizing the mandatory sensitivity training sessions. Marcus personally oversaw the planning, ensuring that the workshops would be more than just a formality. He hired a renowned diversity consultant named Rachel Carter, whose reputation for challenging people to confront their biases preceded her. Rachel arrived at the restaurant on a crisp morning, armed with years of experience and a no-nonsense approach to fostering real change. The training began in the private dining room, which had been cleared out to accommodate chairs arranged in a circle. Every employee, from servers and hosts to chefs and dishwashers, was required to attend. As they filed in, there was a mix of curiosity and apprehension in the air. Some staff members whispered nervously to each other, while others sat quietly, avoiding eye contact. Liam, still carrying the weight of guilt from his earlier actions, slouched slightly in his seat, his hands clasped tightly together. Rachel stood at the front of the room, her presence commanding yet approachable. She greeted everyone warmly, before diving straight into the heart of the matter. "Today isn't about pointing fingers or assigning blame," she began. "It's about understanding how our thoughts, assumptions, and behaviors affect those around us, and learning how to do better." She started by sharing stories of discrimination and bias, many of which mirrored Evelyn's experience. Each story was followed by group discussions where employees were encouraged to share their own perspectives. At first, the conversations were hesitant, with only a few brave souls speaking up. But as the hours passed, the room grew livelier. People opened up about moments when they had witnessed unfair treatment, or worse, contributed to it without realizing it. Liam found himself particularly moved during one exercise where participants were asked to write down times they had felt judged or excluded. Reading aloud what he had written, his voice cracked with emotion. "I never thought I could hurt someone like that," he admitted. "But now I see how my actions affected Mrs. Thompson, and probably others too. I'm so sorry." His honesty broke the ice, inspiring others to speak candidly. By the end of the session, the room felt lighter, as though a collective burden had been lifted. For the first time, many of the staff understood that addressing bias wasn't about shame, it was about growth. Meanwhile, Marcus introduced the Evelyn Standard across all operations. Posters went up in the break room outlining its principles. Treat every guest with dignity, listen actively, and anticipate needs beyond what's expected. Employees were encouraged to use these guidelines as a daily checklist, holding themselves accountable for creating a welcoming environment. To reinforce the message, Marcus held weekly team meetings where staff could discuss challenges or successes related to the new policies. During one such meeting, Emily, the young server who had taken over Evelyn's table after the incident, shared a story that brought smiles to everyone's faces. A couple visiting the restaurant for the first time had seemed unsure about the menu, hesitating to ask questions. Instead of rushing them, Emily patiently explained each dish, offering recommendations based on their preferences. When the meal ended, the couple thanked her profusely, saying it was one of the best dining experiences they'd ever had. "That's exactly what we're aiming for," Marcus said proudly. "Moments like these remind us why we're here, not just to serve food, but to create memories." Word of the restaurant's efforts spread quickly beyond its walls. Local news outlets picked up the story, highlighting how Thompson's Table was using a difficult situation to drive positive change. Customers began leaving glowing reviews online, praising not only the delicious cuisine but also the exceptional service. One reviewer wrote, "You can tell the staff genuinely cares about making you feel welcome. It's rare to find a place that combines great food with such heartfelt hospitality." Even regular patrons noticed the shift. An elderly gentleman who had dined at Thompson's table for years remarked to Marcus one evening, "Something feels different here lately. Not just the food, which is always amazing, but the vibe. It's warmer, more inviting." Marcus smiled humbly. "That means a lot, sir. Thank you." Despite the progress, Marcus knew the journey wasn't complete. Change took time, and setbacks were inevitable. Still, he remained steadfast in his commitment to building a culture rooted in respect and inclusivity, and he wasn't alone in this endeavor. His mother, Evelyn, played a crucial role as well. Evelyn visited the restaurant frequently, often sitting at the same corner table where the incident had occurred. She became a quiet mentor to the staff, sharing stories from her life and offering gentle advice when needed. Her presence served as both a reminder of the importance of treating everyone equally and a testament to the power of resilience. One evening, shortly after the training sessions concluded, Evelyn pulled Liam aside. He had been nervous around her ever since the incident, always going out of his way to ensure she received top-notch service. While his intentions were admirable, Evelyn sensed that he still carried guilt. "Liam," she said kindly, gesturing for him to sit beside her. "Let's talk." Liam hesitated but eventually obeyed, wringing his hands anxiously. "Mrs. Thompson, I don't know what to say. I messed up so badly and I'll never forgive myself for making you feel unwelcome." Evelyn placed a hand on his shoulder, her touch firm yet comforting. "Liam, mistakes happen. What matters is what you do afterward. You apologized sincerely, and I accepted it. Now it's time to move forward." "But how do I make sure I don't repeat the same mistake?" he asked earnestly. Evelyn thought for a moment before responding. "Start by asking yourself one question every time you interact with a customer. Would I treat this person differently if they looked like me? If the answer is yes, stop and rethink your approach. It's not easy, but it's necessary." Words stayed with Liam long after their conversation ended. From that day on, he made a conscious effort to check his assumptions, treating every guest with the same level of care and respect. Slowly but surely, he began to rebuild trust, not just with Evelyn, but with everyone he served. As weeks turned into months, Thompson's table thrived. The restaurant became known not only for its culinary excellence but also for its unwavering dedication to inclusivity. Employees embraced the Evelyn standard wholeheartedly, turning it into a cornerstone of their work ethic. Even Liam emerged as a champion of change, mentoring newer staff members on the importance of empathy and fairness. For Marcus, seeing the transformation unfold was deeply fulfilling. He often reflected on how far they had come since that fateful evening. What could have been a devastating blow to the restaurant's reputation instead became a catalyst for growth, a testament to the power of accountability, compassion, and perseverance. And through it all, Evelyn remained a guiding light. Her quiet strength and wisdom inspired everyone around her, proving that even in moments of adversity, grace and dignity could pave the way for meaningful change. The ripple effects of the changes at Thompson's table extended far beyond the walls of the restaurant. What had started as a single incident involving Evelyn and Liam evolved into a movement that touched every corner of the business, and eventually, the community at large. Marcus's commitment to fostering inclusivity wasn't just about fixing a mistake. It became a mission to create lasting change. One of the most significant outcomes of the new initiatives was how they transformed the staff's mindset. Employees, who had initially viewed the sensitivity training as an obligation, soon realized its value. The workshops led by Rachel Carter weren't just lectures. They were interactive sessions designed to challenge assumptions and encourage self-reflection. Through role-playing exercises, group discussions, and real-life scenarios, the team began to see their roles in a new light. Serving food wasn't just about taking orders or delivering plates. It was about creating experiences that made people feel seen, heard, and valued. Liam in particular underwent a remarkable transformation. Once consumed by guilt over his treatment of Evelyn, he channeled his emotions into becoming one of the restaurant's strongest advocates for inclusivity. He took extra care with every table he served, ensuring that no guest ever felt overlooked or dismissed. His colleagues noticed the shift in his demeanor. He seemed more confident, more engaged, and genuinely passionate about his work. During one busy Friday evening, Liam found himself assigned to a large family celebrating a birthday. The group included children, grandparents, and everyone in between. At first glance, they appeared like any other party, but Liam quickly realized there was more to their story. The grandmother, seated at the head of the table, used a wheelchair, and navigating the narrow aisles of the restaurant proved challenging. Instead of simply apologizing for the inconvenience, Liam sprang into action. He coordinated with the hostess to rearrange seating, cleared space near the table, and ensured the grandmother had everything she needed to enjoy her meal comfortably. When the family left later that night, they thanked Liam profusely. "You made tonight so special for us," the grandmother said warmly. "Not many places go out of their way like this." Liam smiled, feeling a sense of fulfillment he hadn't experienced before. For the first time, he understood what Marcus meant when he talked about treating guests with dignity, not just because it was good business, but because it was the right thing to do. As word spread about the positive changes at Thompson's table, the restaurant attracted attention from unlikely sources. Local organizations dedicated to promoting diversity and inclusion reached out to collaborate. One such group invited Marcus to speak at a community event focused on combating prejudice in public spaces. Initially hesitant, Marcus accepted the invitation, knowing it was an opportunity to share his story and inspire others. Standing before a packed auditorium, Marcus recounted the events of that fateful evening, the waiter's oversight, Evelyn's grace, and the steps he took to address the situation. He spoke candidly about his own vulnerabilities, admitting that even as a successful Black entrepreneur, he wasn't immune to the challenges faced by marginalized communities. But instead of dwelling on the negatives, he emphasized the lessons learned and the progress achieved. "We can't control what happens to us," Marcus told the audience, "but we can control how we respond. Every setback is an opportunity to grow, to become better versions of ourselves." That's what we did at Thompson's table, and I believe anyone can do the same, no matter where they are or what they do. His speech earned a standing ovation, cementing his reputation not just as a restaurateur, but as a leader committed to social change. Inspired by his words, several businesses in the area began implementing similar policies, adopting what came to be known as the Evelyn Standard. From boutique shops to corporate offices, the principles of inclusivity and respect gained traction, sparking conversations across the community. Back at the restaurant, Evelyn continued to play a pivotal role in shaping its culture. Her visits became less frequent as her health declined slightly with age, but her influence remained strong. She often joined Marcus for lunch, sharing insights gleaned from decades of navigating life as a Black woman in America. Her stories, sometimes humorous, sometimes heartbreaking, served as reminders of the resilience required to overcome adversity. One afternoon, while sipping tea in the restaurant's garden patio, Evelyn turned to Marcus with a thoughtful expression. "You know," she said, "this place has always been more than just a restaurant to me. It's a symbol of hope, a reminder that kindness and understanding can bridge divides." Marcus nodded, his eyes softening. "I couldn't have done it without you, Mom. You've taught me so much about strength and perseverance." Evelyn chuckled softly. "And you've taught me that change is possible, even when it feels impossible. Just promise me you'll keep pushing forward no matter what." "I promise," Marcus replied earnestly. "Always." Their bond deepened through these moments of reflection, strengthening both personally and professionally. Together, they represented a powerful partnership, one rooted in love, mutual respect, and a shared vision for a better world. Meanwhile, the restaurant itself flourished under the renewed focus on inclusivity. Guests from all walks of life flocked to Thompson's table, drawn not only by the exquisite food but also by the welcoming atmosphere. Regular patrons formed connections with the staff, turning meals into meaningful interactions. Even newcomers felt immediately at ease, sensing the genuine warmth radiating from every corner of the establishment. One evening, a young couple visiting for the first time brought their toddler, who was visibly anxious about the unfamiliar environment. Emily, now one of the senior servers, noticed the child's discomfort and knelt beside him with a kind smile. "Hi there," she said gently. "Would you like to help me pick out your favorite dessert?" The boy's eyes lit up, and within minutes he was laughing and chatting animatedly with Emily. By the end of the meal, the entire family was beaming, grateful for the extra effort that turned what could have been a stressful outing into a joyful memory. Stories like these became commonplace at Thompson's table, reinforcing the idea that hospitality went beyond serving food. It was about creating connections and fostering a sense of belonging. And while challenges still arose occasionally, the staff tackled them head-on, guided by the principles instilled during the sensitivity training. Outside the restaurant, the impact continued to grow. Inspired by Marcus's leadership, local schools incorporated lessons on empathy and bias awareness into their curricula. Community centers hosted workshops modeled after the ones at Thompson's table, encouraging residents to engage in open dialogues about race, privilege, and equality. Slowly but surely, the seeds of change planted by a single incident blossomed into a broader movement. For Evelyn, witnessing this transformation filled her with pride. Though she rarely sought recognition, she understood the significance of her role in inspiring it. Her quiet strength had sparked a chain reaction, proving that even the smallest acts of courage could lead to profound change. As the months passed, Thompson's table became more than just a restaurant. It became a beacon of hope. Its success demonstrated that businesses could thrive not by excluding or alienating, but by embracing diversity and fostering inclusivity. And at the heart of it all stood Marcus and Evelyn, two individuals united by a shared belief in the power of humanity to rise above prejudice and build bridges where none existed before. Through it all, one truth remained clear. The journey toward equality and understanding was ongoing, but with every step taken, every lesson learned, and every act of kindness extended, the world moved closer to a future where everyone, regardless of background or circumstance, could sit at the table and feel truly welcome. As time went on, the changes at Thompson's table continued to resonate far beyond the confines of the restaurant. What had begun as a personal reckoning for Marcus and his team evolved into a broader cultural shift that touched countless lives. The ripple effect of Evelyn's quiet dignity and Marcus's determination to foster inclusivity proved that even the smallest actions could spark monumental change. One of the most profound transformations occurred within Liam himself. Once burdened by guilt over his treatment of Evelyn, he emerged as one of the restaurant's most dedicated advocates for empathy and fairness. His journey from a hesitant young waiter to a confident mentor inspired those around him. New hires often turned to Liam for guidance, not just in serving techniques but in navigating challenging situations with grace and understanding. Liam took great pride in mentoring others, sharing stories of his own mistakes and how they had shaped him. "I used to think being professional meant following rules," he told a group of trainees during one orientation session. "But now I know it's about seeing people, not just their clothes or accents or appearances, but who they really are. That's what makes this job so rewarding." His words resonated deeply with the new staff members, many of whom came from diverse backgrounds themselves. They saw in Liam a reflection of their own potential to grow and contribute meaningfully to the restaurant's mission. Slowly but surely, the culture at Thompson's table became defined not by hierarchy or fear of failure, but by collaboration, accountability, and mutual respect. The Evelyn Standard also gained traction outside the restaurant. Local businesses began adopting its principles, using it as a framework to evaluate their own practices. A nearby cafe implemented a similar policy, encouraging baristas to engage customers with personalized attention and warmth. Even larger, corporations reached out to Marcus seeking advice on fostering inclusive environments. The phrase Evelyn Standard became synonymous with excellence in hospitality and humanity. For Evelyn, these developments brought both joy and humility. She never sought recognition, yet she couldn't deny the impact her presence and her son's leadership had created. Her visits to the restaurant became cherished occasions not only for Marcus but for the entire staff. Employees would eagerly greet her, eager to share updates on how the initiatives were progressing or recount heartwarming stories of guests who felt truly welcomed. On one such visit, Evelyn found herself seated beside a window overlooking the bustling street below. Autumn leaves swirled in the breeze, painting the sidewalk in hues of gold and crimson. As she sipped her tea, Emily approached her table, balancing a tray laden with desserts. "I thought you might like to try our seasonal special," Emily said with a bright smile, placing a slice of spiced pumpkin pie before Evelyn. "It's inspired by your favorite flavors." Evelyn chuckled softly, touched by the gesture. "You're spoiling me, dear. But thank you. It looks delicious." Emily lingered for a moment, clearly wanting to say something more. Finally, she spoke. "Mrs. Thompson, I just wanted to let you know how much your story has inspired us. We talk about you all the time. The way you handled everything with such grace. It reminds us why we're here." Evelyn's eyes softened, and she reached out to pat Emily's hand. "Thank you, sweetheart. But remember, it's not my story alone. It belongs to everyone who chooses to learn, to grow, and to treat others with kindness. You're part of that story now, too." Emily beamed, visibly moved by Evelyn's words. Such moments reinforced the idea that Thompson's Table was more than just a place to eat. It was a community bound together by shared values and aspirations. Meanwhile, Marcus worked tirelessly to ensure the restaurant remained a beacon of inclusivity. He introduced monthly feedback sessions where guests could voice their thoughts and suggestions. These gatherings provided invaluable insights, helping the team refine their approach and address any lingering issues. One guest, a young woman named Sarah, shared how her experience at Thompson's Table had restored her faith in humanity after years of feeling marginalized in public spaces. "I walked in expecting to be overlooked," Sarah recounted during one session. "But instead I was greeted warmly, served attentively, and made to feel like I belonged. For the first time in a long while, I didn't feel invisible." Her testimony brought tears to several staff members' eyes, including Liam's. Moments like these reminded everyone why their work mattered, not just for the sake of business, but for the human connections they nurtured every day. Beyond the restaurant, the movement sparked by Thompson's Table continued to gain momentum. Community leaders organized events celebrating diversity and inclusion, often inviting Marcus and Evelyn to speak. Their partnership became a symbol of intergenerational wisdom and resilience, inspiring others to confront biases and embrace change. At one such event, Evelyn delivered a heartfelt speech that left the audience spellbound. "Change doesn't happen overnight," she said, her voice steady and warm. "It takes courage, patience, and a willingness to listen, to truly hear what others are saying. But when we open our hearts and minds, we discover something beautiful, that we're stronger together than we ever could be apart." Her words echoed through the auditorium, prompting a standing ovation. People approached her afterward, thanking her for her courage and wisdom. Evelyn accepted their gratitude graciously, always redirecting the focus back to collective effort. "This isn't about me," she would say. "It's about all of us working toward a better future." As the years passed, Thompson's Table grew into a legacy, a testament to the power of compassion and perseverance. The restaurant expanded to multiple locations, each embodying the same commitment to inclusivity and excellence. Yet no matter how large the enterprise became, its roots remained firmly planted in the values Evelyn and Marcus had championed from the start. Evelyn eventually slowed down, spending more time at home surrounded by family. But her spirit lived on in every corner of the restaurant, from the servers who greeted guests with genuine smiles to the chefs who poured their hearts into every dish. And though she rarely visited in person, her influence was felt daily, a quiet reminder of the strength found in grace and dignity. For Marcus, running the business became less about achieving success and more about honoring his mother's legacy. He often reflected on how far they had come since that fateful evening, when a single incident exposed flaws in the system and ultimately led to profound growth. "We didn't choose this path," he once told his team during a staff meeting, "but I'm grateful we walked it together. Because of you, because of Mom, and because of everyone who believed in us, we've built something extraordinary." And so Thompson's Table stood as a shining example of what was possible when people committed to doing better, for themselves, for others, and for the world. Its story served as a reminder that even in moments of adversity, there was always room for redemption, growth, and love. Through Evelyn's quiet strength and Marcus's unwavering vision, the restaurant became more than just a dining destination. It became a symbol of hope, unity, and the enduring belief that everyone deserved a seat at the table.